There are exactly 10 days. 10 days between the moment wheat ripens and the moment it rots in the field. 10 days, if the weather holds. In the summer of 1852 in Wayne County, Ohio, the weather did not hold. Most farms on that road lost wheat that summer. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to change the calculation for the next 10 years. There was one farm where not a single stalk was lost. Not because the weather was kinder to that ground. Not because that farmer was luckier, because he was faster, and the reason he was faster was the very thing the reaper salesman had laughed at 6 weeks before the rain came. Wayne County, Ohio, 1852. Not the frontier, not a new settlement struggling to break sod. This is settled Ohio farm country. Established farms, productive soil, good neighbors, a county that had been feeding families for 30 years, and every farmer in that county had learned to harvest wheat the same way their fathers had done it, the same way their grandfathers had done it before them, with a scythe. The grain cradle, a scythe with wooden fingers to catch the wheat as it falls, was the tool every wheat farmer in Ohio used. A skilled cradler could harvest 1.5 to 2 acres a day. 2 acres. Maybe 4 if he had help. And wheat, once it ripens, has exactly 10 days before the husks open and the grain begins to fall out and rot on the ground. 10 days. Now do the arithmetic. A man with 40 acres. 2 acres per day. 20 days of work, and 10 days before the window closes. Caleb Morse is 34 years old in the spring of 1852. He's been farming his 40 acres in Wayne County for 11 years. He knows his soil. He knows his neighbors. He knows the rhythm of an Ohio harvest. The way the wheat comes in fast in July. The way the sky can change in an afternoon without warning. He has lost grain to rain before. Not much. Not catastrophically. But enough that he has thought about it. Alone in his barn. In the winter, when there was nothing to do but think about what went wrong and whether it had to. The McCormick reaper had been on the market since the mid-1840s. By 1847, McCormick had moved his factory to Chicago and was selling across the Midwest one demonstration at a time. The numbers were impossible to argue with. A crew of 6 men with scythe could harvest 2 acres a day. The McCormick reaper, 2 horses, 1 man, could harvest 10 to 15 acres a day. That was not an improvement. That was a different world entirely. But the machine had a problem. 2 problems, actually. The first, it cost between $100 and $130, a season's cash income. The second was more fundamental. The reaper was most efficient on large flat fields. On rolling hilly eastern Ohio, where the ground was irregular, stone-stubbled, uneven, the machine struggled. Its cutting bar locked up on hillsides. On a bad hill it could damage the mechanism entirely. And still, most Ohio farmers called it a humbug. In the spring of 1852, a McCormick salesman came to Caleb's farm. He came on a Wednesday morning in May. He had his demonstration arranged. He could show the numbers firsthand. 10 acres in a day, no stopping, no crew required. Caleb Morse listened to all of it. Then Caleb walked the salesman to the east field and showed him the ground. Not flat, not the gentle roll of the demonstration field. Real Wayne County ground, hillside, stone lines under the surface, soft low corners, the particular uneven topography of land never designed for a machine. The salesman looked at the field. He looked at Caleb Morse. Then he looked at the scythe on the barn wall. "Sir," the salesman said, his voice shifting from pitch to pity, A man who harvests 40 acres with a scythe in Wayne County is going to spend 3 weeks in the field praying the weather holds. The reaper takes that prayer away. Caleb Morse said nothing. He thanked the man, he closed the gate, and he went back to sharpening his scythe. Word traveled, the way word always travels in a farming county. By the end of that week, 2 farms on Caleb's road had agreed. By the end of May, 4 farms had purchased. The salesman had come back twice to take the orders, and each time he passed Caleb Morse's gate. He did not stop. The men at the feed merchant had an opinion, not unkind, not vicious, just certain. A farmer named Horace Webb, who had watched the demonstration twice, put it plainly. Morse is a good man and a careful farmer, but he is harvesting 40 acres in Wayne County with 1 pair of hands and a 40-year-old tool. The weather in Ohio does not care about careful farmers. The men around him nodded. Horace Webb was not wrong. He was not being unkind. He was doing the arithmetic, and the arithmetic said that Caleb Morse had 2 acres a day and a 10-day window, and that was not going to be enough. What none of them saw, including Horace Webb, was what Caleb Morse was doing in his field every evening from the first week of June onward. He was not walking his crop to admire it. He was counting, not the acres. He was counting his neighbors. Caleb Morse did not argue with the salesman. He did not go to the feed merchant and defend his scythe. His brother-in-law asked him in early June, "Are you going to be ready when the wheat comes in? 40 acres is 40 acres, Caleb. Your father couldn't do it, and he was a stronger man." Caleb Morse told him, "I will be ready." His brother-in-law went home to check his new reaper. Caleb Morse went back to counting his neighbors. The reapers had arrived. Large, iron-clattering machines sitting at the ends of rows, waiting for harvest. He looked at them for a long time. Then he went back to his barn. He had been checking whether his idea was going to work, and he thought it would. Here is what Caleb Morse had been counting. Every farm on the road that had purchased a reaper was farming between 30 and 60 acres of wheat. Every farm. And the reaper, the beautiful, efficient 10 acres a day McCormick reaper, required one thing that the salesman had not once mentioned in his demonstration. It required binders. The reaper cut the wheat. What it did not do, in 1852, was bind it. The reaper cut and deposited wheat in loose piles on the platform, and then workers, 2, 3, sometimes 4, had to follow behind, gathering the loose-cut wheat, tying it into sheaves by hand, and shocking it. A reaper cutting 15 acres a day still needed 4 to 6 binders working flat out to keep pace, because Ohio wheat does not ripen one farm at a time. It ripens across a county in a narrow band of days, driven by the same rain, the same sun, the same temperature patterns. In that narrow band, every farm with a reaper needed binders. Not next week, not later. Now. And the county had not grown extra harvest labor just because it had purchased new machines. What Caleb Morse had done in the weeks before harvest, while his neighbors were learning to operate their new reapers, was something that looked from the outside like nothing at all. He had spoken to people. His brother-in-law would come. The Granger family, 2 farms north, would send 2 of their boys. Old man Schaffer, 63, slower than he used to be, but who could bind wheat by hand faster than any young man and had been doing it since 1812, would come for 3 days. Caleb had 7 people. 7 people who would arrive on the first morning of the harvest week and would not leave until the last sheaf was shocked. The reaper farms had a machine. Caleb Morse had a system. he knew one more thing about his scythe that the salesman never thought to ask about. On rolling, uneven Wayne County terrain, on hillsides and corners and soft low ground, a skilled man with a grain cradle went where the reaper could not. No locked mechanism, no tilted cutting bar. A man with a scythe could follow every inch of ground that he had farmed for 11 years and knew by the particular feeling under his boots. He checked his reasoning, not because it was wrong, because he needed it to be right. July 6th, 1852. The wheat in Wayne County ripened in the first week of July, which was early that year, pulled by a warm June. Good news for yield. Terrible news for timing. Early ripening meant the machines needed immediately, on the same day, on every farm. On July 7th, Horace Webb's reaper began cutting. It cut beautifully, 10 acres in a day, just as promised. But Horace Webb had 3 binders. His machine needed 5. The other 2 he had arranged for, a man named Levi and his son, were already committed to another reaper farm down the road. Both farms had expected them on the same day. Horace Webb stood in his field watching the machine cut wheat and watching that wheat pile up faster than 3 binders could handle. He was not behind. Not yet. But the sky to the west was doing something he did not like. On the same morning, 7 people arrived at Caleb Morse's farm before sunrise. The brother-in-law, the 2 Granger boys, Old Man Schaffer, who showed up in the dark with his own binding apron and did not say a word except, "Let's not waste light." They went into the wheat with 2 cradles swinging. By mid-morning, they had 12 acres cut and bound. Not the machine's pace, but 12 acres cut and bound was finished. Every sheaf shocked and standing, safe from whatever the sky intended to do. July 9th, the rain arrived in the afternoon. Not a violent storm, not a catastrophe, just a steady, heavy, mid-July rain that came out of a gray sky and did not stop for 2 days. On Horace Webb's farm, there were 11 acres of cut wheat lying loose and unbound on the ground. Cut by his beautiful, efficient machine, waiting for binders who had been committed to 2 farms at once. That wheat got wet. The loose-cut stalks absorbed the rain quickly, much faster than standing wheat would have. Heavy with water, the sheaves would not dry properly. Some of the grain at the base of the pile began to sprout in the warm, wet ground. Sprouted grain could not be sold. Sprouted grain could not be milled. Sprouted grain was simply gone. By the morning of July 9th, when the rain began, Caleb Morse's 40 acres were done. Every sheaf cut, every bundle bound, every shock standing dry in the field. 7 people, 2 scythes, 2.5 days, 38 acres, all of it in. He stood at the barn door and watched the rain come down on clean stubble. The wheat was safe. The wheat was finished. The weather had nothing left to take. 3 days after the rain stopped, Horace Webb walked up the road to Caleb Morse's gate. He did not have a complaint. He had a question. "How did you know about the binders?" he said. Caleb Morse leaned on the gate. "I didn't know anything about the binders. I knew that every man in the county who owned a scythe was going to be somewhere else that week, and I knew the ground on the east side of my south field wouldn't let a machine touch it. I didn't know enough about your reaper to tell you what it couldn't do. I knew enough about my ground to tell you what I needed." Horace Webb stood at the gate for a moment. Then he said, "Next year I'm going to need a better plan for the binding." "Yes," Caleb Morse said, "you are." And he opened the gate. By 1860, Western farmers brought in 70% of the nation's wheat harvest with the reaper. The McCormick Reaper was one of the most consequential machines in the history of American agriculture. It opened the Midwest. It fed cities. It helped win a war by letting northern farmers send their sons to fight while their wheat still came in. Cyrus McCormick was right about what his machine could do. He was just right about different ground than Caleb Morse was standing on. The same wheat field, the same darkening sky, the same 10 days. The machine did not change the 10 days. The 10 days were never the machine's problem to solve. The 10 days were always there, on every farm, under every kind of sky. The only question was always the same. How well do you know your ground? This story draws from documented history. The McCormick Reaper's numbers are real. 2 acres per day with a grain cradle, 10 to 15 with the mechanical reaper. The 10-day wheat harvest window is documented. The binder shortage at early adoption is documented. By 1860, 70% of Western wheat brought in by reaper. The self-raking attachment arrived mid-1860s, the mechanical binder using twine, the 1870s. The machine became complete, just not in 1852. Most people think the new tool solves the problem. A few ask what the new tool was designed for, and whether that is actually the problem they have. This channel was not built for everyone. It was built for the few who think the way Caleb Morse farmed. If you are the kind of person who reads the whole sales pitch and then asks the question the salesman never addressed, you already know why you're here. Subscribe. New story every morning. Have you ever watched everyone around you buy the same solution and felt quietly that the solution was built for a different problem than yours? Leave that in the comments. I read every one. This is American soil.